Hey everyone, so I did these videos for each role back in Season 7 a couple of years ago, basically looking at which champions are the best when you put a lot of time into them, when you main them and you start to master them. This video has a few picks which are my opinion, but it's mostly honestly just stats, so you can flame me if you like, but it's not really me. It leans a lot on how win rates go up with experience on the champion. Let me know if you want me to do these with other roles as well. We're about halfway through the season now, so it's a decent time to dive into it and have a look. Just before we get into the video today, you probably guessed where this is going, unless you've been living under a rock on the channel, you know that we have been sponsored by Raid Shadow Legends a bunch of different times. This is a mobile game. This is one that I play as well. It's actually really cool, and thank you again to them for sponsoring another video on the channel. So it's one of these RPG games. It is a free-to-play game on your mobile. It has an amazing storyline, awesome 3D graphics as well, giant boss fights. You've got your arena in there. You've got a bunch of different champions. I think there's over 400 champions right now as well. So I am playing this on my phone. Guys can add me. I am cup of tea, nice and British for that one. There is going to be a huge update this month as well. So if you're coming back to the game or you haven't tried it yet, now is a really good time to do it. There is a link in the description. So go to the video description, click on that link, and it will give you 50,000 silver, a free epic champion as well as part of the new player program. So make sure you do that. And thank you again for Raid Shadow Legends for sponsoring the video. At first one, it wasn't really a jungler until earlier in this season. Like, Karthus is a new entry, right? He found his home in the jungle for now. He's like a power farmer, and he has really good damage. When he starts to win a lot, it'll go up to like a 56% win rate, which is actually really good, and you only need about 50 games to start to win a lot more. It does start way lower, though, than other junglers when you first play him. He is a lot different to other junglers anyway. You have to kind of adjust to his playstyle in the first place, which is not, by the way, just farming for late game. You get a lot of kills on average earlier, and you have the highest average damage per game as a jungler. Obviously, a lot of that is your ultimate because it hits everybody, but still a good Karthus will manage to get fed a lot more in the game, will gank a lot more and make them work with the wall slow. Jungle Karthus actually has a really good early game with a lead. Like, even your Skittles, your Q will start to do a lot of damage, and that is the part the experience really shows with Karthus way more. Next up, we're going to look at Nidalee, and this is sort of a stat one, but sort of my opinion as well here, because stats never really show just how good Nidalee is once you learn her. If it was up to me, I would have a top 3 for sure. So your win rate will jump to like 55, 57-ish, and you need a good 50 or 60 games on her before you start to win. The difference between a new and a good Nidalee player is absolutely huge. Your win rate to start with is going to be awful. She's very difficult to learn, in my opinion. You have to relearn how to clear the jungle in the first place with her because it's so different. That will take a while anyway, so you're not permanently low health and you kite the camps, and then you have to learn how her hunt system works as well. You got to get used to her damage, where it comes from, how you use it, when you can go in, when you can execute, when you have to poke, when you need to stay further back. Your playstyle is just so different, right? Sometimes she just creates pressure by throwing Q early into the game, like not even actually diving in or ganking properly. You're definitely a heavy ganker though. That is where your focus is. You have an amazing early game, and the skill part is winning with that lead or still winning late game, which is a lot harder. Next up, we have Shaco. Definitely isn't going to be as strong as he was in previous seasons, but he's still very good in the right hands. So you're going to start to win about 57% when you're good with him, and it starts to pay off around 50 and 60 games again, so he's actually quite hard to learn to start with. There is a really big difference, same as Nidalee, really. You lose more than you win to start with, which is actually pretty depressing, but it gets a lot better as you start to learn him. When you know what you're doing, you're going to have way more impact in the game, even though his early isn't really the strongest ever now since that rework we had a little while ago. You can cheese really well, you can invade well, steal buffs, and that is where learning what you're going to do early helps a ton. If you get that lead, you can run around and one-shot people, or if the game goes late enough and you get items and you dust spade and stuff, that's kind of what Shaco is designed to do now. A lot of that as well, though, is about decision making, so you have to kind of play a little bit smarter as well, like knowing you have the damage to go in and one-shot the enemy AD when they least expect it, or when you can go in and when you can't. There are a few other mechanics that you're going to have to learn as well, like your box placement, like properly, your pathing and everything like that, your farming, I guess, even your ultimate, actually, the mechanic to dodge stuff as well. That'll take a little bit of time. Next up, we have one that isn't really meta at all. Like, Udit isn't the best at the moment, but even with that, he has still maintained a pretty good win rate when you play more games with him. This one's actually pretty good as well, because you'll get about 57 to 60% win rate when you actually play a lot more Udit, and it pays off around 40 games. That's going to be less than your Nidalee and your Shaco already, but the difference between a good one and a bad one is really big. Like, you can be mega useless. He also has one of the highest potential win rates when mastered out of every champion in this video, by the way. So he's extremely deadly 1v1, right? You can invade, you can chase the enemy jungler around even early into the game, and that is a different playstyle to pretty much everything we have at the moment because Riot don't really like you counter jungling that often. I think he's just insanely hard to play against, especially if you aren't sure what to expect or what to do, so he's kind of barely played, and that is definitely in your advantage, not the enemy's. When you get a few items, you're going to be starting to burst really hard and delete people, plus you're very hard to kill anyway because you can kite people around in your bear stance and your turtle. You can honestly win your game through that damage, bursting people out and stuff, or just split push, right, and taking towers, the famous trick 2D way of doing it. It's very annoying, and it's not easy for solo queue to play against either. Next up, we're going to be looking at Rammus, and he's actually in this video again. He was in here last time. Even though it sounds ridiculous, he's actually quite good to master. You can expect to win about 58 to 60% of games when you actually start to play him, and it only requires like 30 to actually start to win a lot more. The difference between a new and a better Rammus player actually isn't that big anymore. Like, you don't really need that many games to start to win. One thing that must help as well, though, is at the moment, tanks are really good, but nobody really wants to play them. You don't play Rammus for the glory, let's be honest. Actually, Rammus is insane later into the game for the engage, the reflection damage, and the tankiness as well, so he isn't gonna fall off. Good Rammus players will learn how to get ahead early, which then kind of gets their items quicker and helps them reach that strong point as well. That's kind of why they get Moe boots, and then they can run around, taunt people, and actually kill them. He's not really that good at farming, so you really do want to gank a little bit more, and learning how to pull that off without falling behind is where the experience really comes in. It's not really learning his like sick combos or mechanics or anything, like you taunt people, you press W, it really is not that difficult. It's just really what to do with him to get to his actual strong point. Moving into our top 5, these ones are really good to main in Season 9, and right now Hecarim is very strong. He has been for a while, so this will definitely be kind of part of it as well, but he can take over a game. When you start to main him, you'll expect to win like about 57% plus. Honestly, it can keep going up as well, but it really only needs like 30 games to be good and then 50 to be really good. The difference between a new and good Hecarim is fairly big, but it doesn't really take that long to get decent at him, so you'll start to see results pretty early. So as we said, right now Hecarim is a monster. It's a bit different to these others because he's just very meta, I guess. He farms well, but he can duel people, he can gank a ton, and just kind of go out of control. Having a path that you take to get these early plays off will definitely help, and that is something you're really going to learn, like learning what you can and what you can't gank. So after those early stages, though, he does some really good damage, way more than people think when he challenges in, plus it's having the balls to stay in the fight and rely on the healing to survive. Honestly, there aren't a ton of mechanics, except like his ultimate fear. Getting that fear and charge off in the right direction is very key to making plays, so it's not too difficult to learn, but it's very important. One that is definitely not like just meta is Kane. So this is number 4, right? One that follows a way more normal win rate with experience. The more you play, the more it goes up, and it just keeps going up. When you start to play more of him, it's like a 57 plus. It can keep going up as well, and when it really pays off is about 60 games. There is a really big difference between new and experienced Kane players though, so you're gonna suck to start with, but stick it out and you start to win a lot more. Now part of this has got to be that you're learning 2 different champions basically at the same time, blue Kane and red Kane. You will learn to assassinate on blue, right? Roam around the map, pick people off, and when to actually dedicate to it and when to just poke. Red is more like in and out with the healing. You're disrupting people while still killing them, just a little bit slower, but you're basically a tank. The thing is, even early into the game, you're playing very differently to get your transformation sooner, whichever one you want to play for, right? So each game is different depending on the champions you're against and the form that you want. It means that you just have to learn things a lot slower. It takes a bit longer, and he's probably one of the most complicated junglers to actually learn properly. I also think he's actually quite hard to learn. Maybe not the mechanics of him, like a little bit, but also because his early game is just pretty balls compared to others as well. He just scales really well, so you have to learn how to navigate that kind of weak early game. So now we're getting into our top 3, and if you've never watched one of these before, I always ask you guys to guess who you think the top 3 are going to be. So pause the video quickly, leave a comment, and let's see how many of you get it right. So next up, at number 3, we're going to be looking at Kazakh. He is way more popular than a lot of others on this video, and he needs more games to really master, but once you have, you're able to carry the game. So the win rate shows at like 56% plus when you start to main him, but this is a little bit lower than it actually is because a lot of people main Kazakhs a lot more than the others in the video. Roughly, you're going to need about 50 games to really start to win with Kazakhs, and the difference between starting and that 50 win rate is actually pretty big. One of the things I notice straight away when I see a good Kazakhs player, like, or a bad one, is that how they play play the early game really. So Kazakh isn't really that good early game, but a good one will still find ways to pick up kills and start to accelerate his build, get his first few items quicker to kind of take over the game. You can also notice it how creative they are about finding you and killing you. Like their stealth can mean they literally get on top of you before you even know it and you're dead straight after. And okay, Kazakhs will kind of wait for team fights and then see if they can kill someone. A good Kazakhs will go before the team fight and kill someone before it even starts. Especially late game, Kazakhs can really hard carry, but you need to have a better idea of what to do. Find the AD carry like straggling along at the back or leaving base for the easy free kills. Number 2, we have Evelynn. In terms of pure hard carry, by the way, a Mastered Eve is probably the best at 1v9ing as a jungler. This is a really big reason that a lot of Smurf junglers use her to climb up quickly, because she doesn't really need a team to win. She can do most of the work herself. So win rate wise, it's about 57 plus, but it keeps going up and it only really needs about 30 games to do well. It is one of the biggest differences though from brand new to a good Evelynn player in this entire video. So first off, Evelynn scales amazingly well. That means that if you have good farm and you get a lead or you do well early, you'll be able to actually carry the game later. Even at just runic echoes though and some penetration, you can still one rotation kill people, and this is a part a lot of Eves don't really realize or don't go for, but good ones will start to kill you a lot. The stealth is a pretty unique mechanic really. It changes how you want to play and approach fights from a normal jungler, which definitely takes some getting used to and some kind of creativity or knowing what you have to do. Ultimately, I think it's about learning a damage though. This is the biggest thing, knowing when you can kill somebody and how as well, whether you need the charm or you can just burst people without even waiting. And last up, first place is going to be Nunu, and this is honestly the best jungler to main right now in Season 9 if you want to sell your soul for some LP. I know it sounds very strange because it's a tank, it's not even damage or anything, but it does most of this through his early pathing and his ganking. Snowballing into a lane is almost impossible to dodge if it's done properly. His win rate when you start to get good with him is over 60% at the moment, and when it pays off is only like 40 games. Now I know a lot of you will think this is really weird for number 1, but it's more about how you play the game rather than kind of learning Nunu himself. You've got a few things to learn, like different combos, I guess, like how you root people, training your crowd control properly and stuff like that. But a lot of it is how you gank though, where you want to start, how you get into that lane, and you slam all that crowd control onto somebody's face. I think I honestly see more Nunu one tricks than almost any others at higher ranks right now. Once you've learned what you can get away with, it becomes really easy to camp a lane and snowball the game out of control, and that is really why he's just so good when you mastered him. There are a couple of others that I personally would have put in this if it was up to me and not just stat based. Like the top 3 ready for that one would be Elise, Rengar, and Rek'Sai. Elise and Rek'Sai are just amazing early game. If you have some kind of creativity around your pathing or your diving or your ganking, like you can actually snowball out of control. Rengar is very similar to Kazakh, so you can slot him in there as well, but stat wise he just doesn't show the same kind of win rates. So that is going to wrap up the video on the best junglers to master in Season 9. Hopefully you enjoyed this, and let me know if you want me to do it for other roles. Thank you for watching until the very end. I really appreciate it, and for now I will leave you with Robos.